Since 2008, EFSA has been working on drafting up new guidelines regarding risk assessments for the neighbouring environment, as well as for health in general. Now, these guidelines, are they a better progress for the application of European legislation, or on the contrary, do they represent a step backwards from existing practices which are considered to be insufficient by certain member states?
I think the two most important premises of the US regulatory framework were determined way back when we first started to look at this technology in the mid-1980s. And that is, there is no strict distinction between the health and environmental risks of plants produced using modern molecular techniques and by all the conventional breeding practices, some of which I will talk to you about in a moment. This was a National Research Council determination. These are some of the smartest people in the country that are members of the National Academy of Sciences.
So if we go to the strategy for the environment risk assessment, just to remind that the principle that have been developed in the guidance document is that the environment risk assessment should be scientifically sound and performed in a transparent manner. The case-by-case basis is a principle as well as the concept of familiarity, in which the concept of the products that are currently in the agriculture and have a history of safe use can be considered as a baseline, and then the comparative approach is to compare the GM plant with the baseline of known products.
This comparative safety assessment, an entirely new element, is a new expression in essence, or rephrasing of the concept of substantial equivalence. And this concept of substantial equivalence has so far been used in the context of GM food safety assessment. It is newly introduced now in the context of environmental risk assessment for environmental release and cultivation. And even for food, it's been, ever since it's been introduced, highly controversially debated. So there's by no means a consensus on that this concept is sufficient for a safety assessment.
Nobody has said yet that for the environmental GMOs, I mean the GMOs developed in the environment at large scale, we have only 100% pesticide plants. That means plants designed to contain new pesticide residues. So 62% are pesticide plants due to herbicide tolerance, 16 due to insecticide production, and 21% do both. And all the rest is just advertising.
What is the objective? Is to evaluate, which is the responsibility of the GMO panel, the risk assessment done by whom? By the applicant. So they are responsible to provide the panel all the data necessary to carry out the risk assessment. How is this done? Is based on the pillar of the comparative approach. This has already been discussed today extensively, but the foundation is to compare the GMO with a non-GM counterpart grown under the same condition.
After EFSA scientific revision, the Commission, in close cooperation with the Member States, transformed the guidelines into a legal document, into a proposal for a regulation, which will be adopted in the coming months. Our objective is that guidelines will reinforce the current requirements by providing legally binding provisions adopted with member state endorsement, reinforcing scientific aspects by imposing internationally agreed protocols.
But it's very clear from the discussion here that I think there's a united view that here in the room that all the decisions on food safety must be based in science and fact. I think that's a pretty fundamental principle that we all start from, and that's very, very important. I think the second point, and the whole point of this exercise this afternoon, was to try and establish whether EFSA have been willing to listen, willing to engage with those who hold very diametrically different views and have real questions and challenges about process and about the whole authorization process.